So, welcome to talking about Title II. I know the title says beginning anew with Title II. As a little disclaimer, what we talk about today is not that it's brand new guidance. It's just more of a different way to think about flexibility, which is what is really being kind of honed in on right now with the U.S. Department of Ed. So Leslie and I are going to jump into Title II, and we'll get started. We'll talk about some general information, which is like the purpose of Title II, LEA uses the funds, continuous improvement, and then we're going to talk about the Dear Colleague letter and have some discussions around that. We did link in the non-regulatory guidance for Title II, just in case you haven't had it. I'm sure most of you do, especially if you've been around for a long time, but it is here if you need it. Okay, the overview. What is the purpose of Title II? Many bullets here. To increase student achievement consistent with challenging state academic standards. So again, all of these grants, the purpose is to increase student achievement. What can we do to make that happen? How can we use the funds? Yesterday, some of you probably sat in on CR's presentation about how to link DSSR plans and comprehensive needs assessments. How can we use the funds against our goals to increase student achievement? So it all does go back to that. We want to improve the quality and effectiveness of teachers and principals. Last year when we talked about Title II, we really did talk about the word effective and making sure that our educators are receiving the right professional development, training, coaching, whatever it is, to make them the most effective that they can be. To increase the number of teachers and principals who are effective in improving student academic achievement in schools, and to provide low-income and minority students greater access to effective teachers and principals. And with that, you get into recruiting, retaining, stipends, things of that nature. Here are some key definitions for Title II. Evidence-based, an activity, strategy, or intervention that demonstrates a statistically significant effect on improving student outcomes or other related outcomes based on strong, moderate, or promising evidence, or that demonstrates a rationale to improve student outcomes. Evidence-based. Okay, what's the definition of professional development? For Title II, it is supposed to be sustained rather than like a standalone event. So you'll hear me talk more about that in a little while. That is not new to you. And as we review plans, sometimes we will review activities and we will send questions back that say something along the lines of, is this a one-pop shop? How is this sustained? What are the outcomes going to be of this PD? So it's not standalone professional development. Intensive, collaborative, job-embedded, data-driven, and classroom-focused. Okay, and what is the definition of training? Training is typically a standalone one-day or short-term workshop. Okay, so trainings are typically not able to be funded by Title II. Okay, LEA uses of funds. How might the district use Title II funding? When considering how to use Title II funds, the district must do these things. You must address the learning needs of all the students if using these funds at the district level. Focus to the extent possible on evidence-based decision-making. Use the funds to develop, implement, and evaluate comprehensive programs and activities that encompass the wide range of options provided. Prioritize the allocation of funds to high-need schools. Sometimes I don't think that particular bullet is focused that much on, but it is there, so I do bring it to your attention. Prioritize the allocation of funds to the highest need schools. You are supposed to consult required stakeholders, and that does include teachers, principals, school leaders, paraprofessionals, charter school leaders, parents, community partners, and other stakeholders in the planning and implementation of these activities. If you are looking at the Title IV GEMS plan, it has a link where you actually have to check off which one of those groups of stakeholders is involved in the Title IV. So keep it in mind who is supposed to sit in whenever you're thinking about this district uses of Title II funds. Okay, funds made available under Title II Part A must supplement, not supplant, non-federal funds that would otherwise be used for activities authorized under Title II. Okay, what might these look like? Okay, so we've broken it up by professional growth and development, supporting effective instruction, and specialized training and certification. So for professional growth and development, district uses of those funds must be ongoing, high quality, and evidence-based, as we just discussed. Instructional coaching, mentoring, and collaboration. Technology integration in teaching, recruitment and retention of effective educators. Teacher residency and grow your own programs. Induction mentoring for new teachers. Recruiting individuals from other fields to become teachers, principals, and other school leaders. Okay. For supporting effective instruction, that is teacher and leader evaluation and support system, targeted class size reduction strategies, and evidence-based instructional practices. Specialized training and certification might include STEM, literacy, and special education support. So that is some of the basics of Title II that most of you have been around long enough to know all about. So for a few moments, I'm going to talk about this Dear Colleague letter that recently came out. I don't know how many of you are even aware that it came out and what it kind of focuses on. So I thought we'd put it up here, we'd link it in for your reading for later, and I'd talk a little bit about what it kind of contains, what it reinforces, and have a little conversation around that. So this Dear Colleague letter came out in February of this year, and it clarifies existing flexibility under Title II. It does not create new requirements. So I will say that again. We're not in here to tell you how to do it brand new, that we're not going to accept the way you've done it before, or that you've got to change your current practices. This Dear Colleague letter just gives you something to think about so that you can be more strategic in what you're doing with these Title II funds. Okay, so it confirms that the state and the district may use these funds to support innovative teacher workforce strategies, including strategic staffing. So we're going to talk about what is that, what is it not, and what you might can go back and have conversations about. It emphasizes allowable uses that improve educator quality and effectiveness, increase access to effective teachers, principals, and school leaders, reinforces the importance of compliance through intentional design, not one-time or isolated activities. Now, I'm going to skip around with the slides a little bit, so you're going to see me kind of go back and forth. I want to start here. And I want to talk about what strategic staffing is. And so I will say that when I first started teaching, I was teaching in Florence in the first 3 years. It was a wonderful experience. And I remember being brand new, and I shared a room with, I don't want to call it a buddy teacher, but that's what it felt like. There was an experienced teacher who taught right beside me, and we had a little hallway between us. I will tell you that as a brand new teacher, that brought great comfort to me because she was so experienced. She was well known in the community. She'd been around a long time. And as a brand new teacher, knowing that I had a mentor who, if I just opened the door, she opened hers, I might could send her a troubled child. I might say, Miss Wells, can you come over here to be with me? It really goes a long way. And as a federal programs director, if you've ever taught, I want you to think back to those times when you were a brand new teacher and you needed that support. Somebody just to walk over. Or if you need to go to the restroom, you could go to the restroom and she could wash your class. Now, we all know that I probably should not have done that for her, right? I didn't have the classroom management at the time that she did. So if she ever said to me, Jennifer, I need to go to the restroom, listen for my kids, it freaked me out. To have to manage 2 classrooms of kids right there, I will tell you that they're not ready. They're not ready. First year in, second year in. So what can we do to help you? So this dear colleague letter gives some support to help you with principals to think about strategically staffing teachers. And so what does that look like? I will tell you that it's not just adding positions, or it's not just basically reducing class size, okay? It is actually strategically placing the most experienced and effective people in the right place for you to then get a return on investment. Okay, so it is more than just like partner teaching or peer teaching. It is being very strategic with the principals about where we're going to place people. Okay, and so here on the slide, you will see that it is a team-based instructional model. Strategic staffing replaces the one teacher, one classroom norm with shared instructional responsibility. Teams are scheduled together, not just collaborating during planning time. So common team structures could include a lead teacher and an associate teacher, and an instructional lead and a novice teacher, a content specialist plus an interventionist. And so you get the picture that students remain assigned to certified educators. The roles are differentiated, but instructional responsibility is shared. And I will say that as you have conversations with principals, something to keep in mind is that required classroom teachers remain funded with state and local funds. Title II enhances the roles, not the base staffing. So keep that in mind. You think about how can I strategically place, especially the first year induction novice teacher, to get the most out of them. We all already know that teachers are hard to come by, right? I hate to say that it's a dying profession. I don't want it to be that. And so if we can use our funding to make sure that we're doing what we can do when we do get a good educator in, we need to do that. And so how can Title II do that? It can stipend. And we're going to get into some of this as we look at how we can go about doing that. Let's talk about what strategic staffing is not. Okay. It is not simply adding more staff. So it's not hiring additional staff. It is placing them in a different way than where they've been placed before. It is not class size reduction by default. It is not one-time stipends or isolated PD. It is not role changes without instructional redesign. And it is not sustainable without evidence and planning. So this is not something that you come into very haphazardly. It's something that you sit around the table with and you talk about that. So I'm not going to stand up here as an expert and say, this is how you need to staff Rhodes Elementary School. You and that principal would have to sit down at the table and talk about who you have, where the expertise lies, and how you can get the most return on investment, the bang for your buck, by how you strategically place those that are so good at what they do. Okay, so let's go to strategic staffing. The department defines strategic staffing as a team-based approach where two or more professional educators share responsibility for a common roster of students during the same instructional block with differentiated roles and distributed expertise. So notice that their roles are different. In practice, this means schools redesign how they deploy adult expertise rather than simply adding positions or reducing class size. Okay, so you would go from positions to roles, from equal distribution of teachers to intentional distribution of expertise, from isolated classrooms to instructional teams, and from flat career structures to tiered professional pathways. Okay, and why does this matter? Okay, why does this matter for state and districts? It matters because strategic staffing allows Title II and Title I and school-wide programs to maximize the return on investment, improve teacher effectiveness and retention, expand access to effective educators, address shortages strategically, and align funding with instructional priorities. When we talk about teachers and what they need and the professional development that they might need for us to get the most out of that return on investment, strategic staffing depends on professional development embedded in daily work, not in standalone workshops. Designated teachers lead instructional teams. They coordinate planning. They model instruction. Well, how can Title II support that? It can offer stipends. It can offer leadership training. It can give coaching and skill development so that we ensure that we properly give them what is needed to make them the most effective with our Title II funding. Now, in saying all that, we have several slides embedded within this PowerPoint that you can go back and reference and have a more deeper dive. This is also something that as you consider, if you want to consider moving more towards this model, I would suggest that before you put it into the GEMS plan for 27 Title II, that you call your program manager and have these conversations. Okay, or you can call me directly, we can have these conversations. This would eliminate the back and forth between submitting the grant application We can have all the conversations we need to have via Teams or by phone to discuss what this might look like based upon the individualized need of each district. Okay. Everybody is different, and so my team has already met. We've been in some conversations. That being the case, we'll be ready to have conversations with you around this model if you are interested. Okay, and I'm going to let Leslie pick up with some of the normal nuances as we talk about stipends and PD and continuous improvement.
I thought for sure you were going to talk a little bit, and it's going to just read these, but all right. All right, so this is stuff that you should already know, but we're just gonna kind of hit hard on some of the things and some reminders. So we can use Title II to recruit, hire, and retain effective teachers. And so I can use it for signing bonuses. I can use it for retention bonuses, but I will tell you that our team strongly encourages you to have some kind of policy in place when it comes to stipends and bonuses. That way, that covers you when somebody down the line comes and says, well, how did they get one and I didn't, right? So that's usually a question that we ask when we are reviewing your plans is, do you have a board policy in place? And that's just us, making sure that you guys are covered. In addition to that, you can pay for recruitment fare, registration, and travel. You can also pay for an induction or mentoring program. You can also pay stipends for your mentors. You can pay for a system that will audit the quality and evaluation of your support systems. And class size reduction we know about. That's also a good way to retain effective teachers, not blowing out their class sizes. And we'll talk a little bit more about class size reduction in a minute. And then you can also pay for the advancement and professional growth opportunities. And I'll tell you right now, it is allowable for you all to pay for continuing ed for your teachers or for your staff members. So it's allowable for you to decide that you're going to reimburse them for master's courses, right? However, we strongly encourage you to think about having some kind of policy in place there as well. What's their buy-in? Once they, get that admin masters, are they going to stay in your schools? Are they going to stay in your district? Because we don't want to be paying for people to go to other districts, right? To improve themselves so that they are marketable in other districts. So think about that when you're reimbursing for things like that. Also think about what your need is, right? We always got to go back to what our need is in our district. So, is there a need for us to have more admin in our schools? Is there a need for us to have gifted and talented teachers? If there's a need, then yes, that's something that you may want to tap into Title II funding to make happen. In addition to that, we can do teacher residency programs that meet certain requirements. We can make sure that we're recruiting qualified individuals from other fields to become teachers. So, the alternate pathways that we have here in South Carolina, you can help with that. You can also, I know that one of the questions we get is about certification. So we do have a lot of districts in here that are doing international teachers. We will help you with the international teachers, but however, we will not use Title II funding to get their certificate here in South Carolina. All of that needs to be paid for without federal funding. They need to make sure that they're doing that. However, we've had questions about national boards. We've had questions about praxis exams. Those things are requirements, but you can help with reimbursement of those items. The registration fees. You can also help with courses to help them be able to pass those things. All right, so let's talk about class size reduction. So class size reduction is putting an additional teacher in a grade level to reduce class size. And what you need to keep in mind is that you need to meet our state requirements, which for K through 6 is 30 to 1 in the classroom, and then it's 35 to 1 from there on. And so you need to make sure that you're meeting those requirements first. However, if your district has stricter requirements, if in your comparability paperwork, your district's goal is to have a class size of 18 to 1, you have to meet that requirement as well. Remember, Shane told us a minute ago that we always go with the most stringent one. So if your personal district's class size requirements are more strict than the state levels, then you need to meet that first before you can tap into federal funds to help pay for an additional teacher. In addition to that, we cannot use class size reduction for gifted and talented or for any special education programs. All right. So we can also use it specifically for teachers, principals, and other school leaders to build their essential skills for readiness and academic success, to help with integrating technology, to support those high need students that you may have a need to supplement in your classes. STEM is huge, so we can tap into Title IV, but in addition to that, you can use Title II for the training for STEM. And then developing and implementing induction and mentoring programs, which I mentioned earlier, and that can be for new teachers as well as new principals. So conferences and workshops. So I know that we have a lot of districts here in our state that are starting to really mix the travel. You know, like what's most important. They're really honing in on it. They're looking to see how much money is being spent on it. We do the same. That's why we ask for you to fill out that professional development matrix for us, because it allows us to see in one big spot what schools are spending what on professional development, who's going, are the same people going to things, what's the total cost that you're spending on professional development. It gives us a quick snapshot, and it gives you a quick snapshot as well. Not only that, it's a perfect tracking device for you to make sure that you're following up with your schools about how that professional development is being shared out within the school when they return, right? So I mentioned in my session yesterday, my parent and family engagement session, that my session yesterday was information that I had gained at the national conference. And so I was sent to the national conference, and then I'm coming back to you all and sharing all of that information. And that's the main goal. Not, sending a whole bunch of people, but sending the essential people, and then bringing it back and getting that information spread through your schools and your district to those people that can really benefit from it. I will tell you, the guidance does tell you that you need to have a strong justification for traveling outside the state. We all know that some of our conferences outside the state are super beneficial, and they're only offered one time a year, and they're only offered in one place. However, think about all of those things that your schools may be attending that are offered in other areas, so in other times. So I see Avid a lot. I know that there's always, every single year, there's a huge Avid conference in Miami. But there's also Avid conferences that occur more locally. And then if your district is a whole Avid district, then you need to consider bringing the Avid people to your district. And I've had this conversation with some different federal program coordinators as well about getting their bang for their buck for the money that they're spending. And so bringing the professional development to them to be able to serve more people. So we can also do compensation, additional compensation for professional development. So you can do supplements for those that are presenting professional development. So the time that they're putting in to present that information. I can also do stipends for those that are attending professional development outside of contracted hours. So if you think about how we require some different professional development in the summertime, when I first moved to Richland too, that was one of the things that they offered us was a stipend for attending certain professional developments, and I just thought that was the best thing that I had ever had. I was like, oh, okay, cool. You're paying me for my time. And I do see that popping up in plans a little bit more now because you're seeing that, we need to compensate our teachers for bettering themselves, right? So if that's a need in your district, if you're having trouble pulling people in, or you feel like that's a value in your district, then you can use your Title II money to offer stipends for attending professional development outside of contracted hours. You can also pay for substitutes for teachers to go and attend different professional development, or you can use substitutes for teachers to be able to go and observe master teachers in your district. You can use money to pay substitutes for collaborative planning for your teachers. So those are things to think about. We always talk about this. I can purchase PD supplies. I can purchase study books. I'm not going to buy books to do a whole professional development library with Title II funding, but there needs to be some intention behind what we're purchasing. We can purchase the items that we would need to conduct the professional development. So maybe you need chart paper. Maybe you're doing a professional development on geometry. And it's geometry within elementary schools, and you would love to have some manipulatives at your hands for the teachers to be able to work through when they're in that training. I can pay for that. However, those manipulatives cannot fall into the hands of the students once they are purchased specifically for professional development. So I did have a district reach out to me, and they were like, we want to purchase tangrams for our teachers to be able to go through this training. Is it okay if those materials go back to the classroom, but the teacher is using them for modeling experiences? And I was like, I think we can get away with that one. That one works. It's just that they need to be used specifically for the teacher to be doing the professional development and then also the modeling. In addition to that, you can use it for leadership. So I can help principals and superintendents become outstanding managers. So we have an awesome program that the State Department does. So you can use some of that funding for travel for those leaders to come and attend that. I've also had the question about SCASA meetings. And that I would say would follow in the same category. So for SCASA meetings, you can use the funding for travel if you need to for those things. If it's a huge need in your district, and also those professional memberships as well. All right. So this is the question portion of our section. I did not prepare a quiz for you like Shane did earlier. So there's no prizes. I work for the State Department. But I'll just go through a couple of these things. And this is one that we have had come up quite a few times. So can LEAs use Title II funds to support the creating curriculum, content, and materials aligned with the state standards? No. We cannot use Title II funding to create materials, to create curriculum, or because it's all within our state standards. Now, if you wanted to pull together a group of teachers and do a session on unpacking the new state standards, where you're diving into them, you're giving them professional development on exactly what they have changed to. Yes, we can pay for that, but I cannot pay a group of teachers to come together and create a new planning guide for my district. In addition, I can use the Title II funding for teacher advancement, which we already kind of talked about a little bit. Not just master's programs, but also the mentor training. So I can pay for materials for the mentor training. I can pay for stipends for the mentors that are actually doing the training. I can pay for the application fees for those additional certifications. I can even pay for time for them to work on those certifications outside of contracted hours if that's a huge need for you in your district. And we already talked about advanced degrees. Okay. I can also use my Title II funding to support paraprofessionals or out-of-field teachers. So this is those alternate paths that we are encouraging, and kind of this whole grow your own kind of situation, right? You have wonderful paraprofessionals inside of your schools. I will tell you, one of the things that I do outside of contracted hours is I get to work with Columbia College on interviewing their teacher candidates. And those are anywhere from fresh out of high school, teacher candidates, so those that are like their second year of being in college, to they have a whole program that literally is focused around working with paraprofessionals. And the paraprofessionals that come to the table, they're special education paraprofessionals, they are jam up. So think about, adding that support in your district to be able to grow your own and utilize those that are right there with you and to support them through their coursework, their exam prep, and even those exam fees. Now, I will tell you that we highly encourage you to have some kind of policy in place that they have to pass the exam in order to get the reimbursement that just covers you. All right, so we've been talking a lot this week about return on investment. That comes into play with Title II as well. So we need to make sure that we're meeting with those stakeholders. Jennifer already listed off for you who those stakeholders include. We need to be meeting with them ahead of the game. We need to be meeting with them throughout the process to kind of review the data that we have to make decisions for the next year. So what kind of data can I look at? Well, I can look at my recruitment and my retention data. I can look at student assessment data to see if there is growth in academics. Like Jennifer said, all of these programs go back to that same core where we're trying to increase academic achievement. I can look at survey data from my educators, students or families about the school climate. I can look at survey data from educators on their professional development options, educator evaluation data that you guys collect, student leader evaluation data, data on distribution of effective teachers, so those IOI reports that we put out every year at the state level. So that includes, what teachers you have that are inexperienced, out of field, and ineffective, and what you can do to support that. Or to get them out of those categories. And then student data measuring the degree to which class size reduction is actually making a difference. So we have a school that's using class size reduction for third grade every year. Is their justification still strong? Is there still a need for it to take place in third grade from year to year? So things that we need to just evaluate. All right. And Anew uses Title II funds to pay stipends for teachers attending professional development outside of the regular work hours. Is this allowable or not? Turn to a partner and talk about it. Okay. All right, so what is our consensus? This is allowable. All right, let's go into the next one. An LEA implements a district-wide professional development initiative to train teachers and school leaders on selecting and implementing formative assessments. The program includes technical assistance on designing classroom-based assessments, analyzing student performance data, and using data to adjust instruction. Additionally, the LEA provides teachers with dedicated time during the school day for collaborative data review and instructional planning. Is this allowable or not? Turn to your partner and discuss. Okay, what's our consensus? Everybody's like really excited to tell me their answer. If I had a quiz show just like Shane, you would have already put your answer.
Trainers, but not the teachers need during a regular day.
So I think it depends on what you're paying for, right? So this is allowable. So some instances, though, what can I pay for in this part? Can I pay for substitutes for that planning time? Yes. Can I pay for the teachers to get a stipend for that planning time? No, because it's during contracted hours, right? We said it was during the instructional day. Can I pay for materials for this? Yes. What is something else that is a hiccup for you? Are there any other things that you guys are like, wait a second?
Is it a required formative assessment?
That's an excellent question.
Which case it would be supplemental. If it's state required, it would be supplemental. Something.
We're going to say that it's not state required today. Okay. Any other hiccups?
I think like an instructional, dedicated time. Dedicated time, yes. Maybe not the trailer yet. Or something like that, yeah. Dedicated time, yes. I was just saying the instructional coach that facilitates that could be paid.
Yes, I can pay for an instructional coach using Title II funding. We just have to be very specific in what their job description looks like, right? So we need to make sure that they're not working with students, that they are indeed just working with staff and teachers. I cannot pay them to create anything, like create curriculum or anything for their teachers. But if their job is to dive through standards with their teachers, to dive through assessment data, things like that, then yes, I can pay for the position. Can I pay for a partial position? Yeah, I can pay for a partial position too. If that person is a curriculum coach but also serves students in intervention, I can split fund, right? All right. A student mandates, not a student. A state mandates literacy training for all K-3 teachers and asks if Title II funds can be used to cover the training costs. Are y'all thinking about a specific literacy program? All right, no, we cannot pay for that because it is a state mandate. So if I'm meeting that state mandate. Now, what if I decide that I want my fourth grade teachers to go through it too, but it's not mandated for them? Can I pay for the fourth grade teachers? Yes. Okay. All right. I'm gonna let you guys go. So you can be first in line for lunch, which is Trevinius today, which if you don't know, that's the best pasta in Columbia. So at the end of our presentation, we just have a couple of resources for you all. If you have any questions about Title II, you can reach out to your program manager. And We thank you for joining us today. Shane will give an umbrella to somebody that, oh wait, no, he doesn't have one.